Hello, today we have the lecture Disclosing the Natural Economy first part. So what is the first part about? Well, about the natural economy in general. What is my definition of natural economy? And then for the last words on the politics of future, how this natural economy is going to influence the politics. Okay, so natural economy in general. So the natural economy is based on the fact that everything that we need for an aspiring life is not conditioned by money, but directly with products and services. Such economy provides an exciting life for all inhabitants of the planet Earth, but only when we will realize our devoted self, so that this devoted ego, not rebellious ego. Only then will lack and poverty disappear. As for first, with the natural economy we can the majority of the existing professions that are based on heavy and repetitive physical works, the construction, ironworks, foundries, shipyards, mining, automotive, etc., substitute with automation and robotics. You know how it is today when some are afraid of automation since it can eliminate the free posts and thus increase unemployment. But this isn't the case of the non-monetary economy. Have you ever wondered why has been the automation even introduced? Well, not to replace the posts, the free posts, but to increase the productivity and quality of our products while reducing human effort and improving our health. So this is the basis of the automation, not to rise this unemployment. So one of the differences of the natural economy is that automation and robotics become human ally, friend. This means that the future generations will have such primary activities where the aim will not be the mere survival but a more exciting work. Because if there is no money in circulation, where everything is free, then it doesn't matter if you are working or not, because a great majority of works is done by the machines, and so you have all for free, especially in the transition to the natural economy, especially all the necessary life goods. Further, when we are talking about primary activities in the natural economy, we can ask ourselves also the following: what will actually drive someone in the pursuit of a primary activity if there isn't any money award? Well, just remember how we were as a child doing all kinds of things without expecting any money in return. Just remember what hobbies you had as a child and how you didn't like any excitement. And consider how much free time and momentum you are perhaps now dedicating to your hobbies, for which in all likelihood you aren't receiving any money, but you are nevertheless performing them. So the key factor that is decreasing our inspiration is precisely the fact that we've been programmed by the matrix like there is no point without the involvement of money. In fact, in such a society we have been raised and thus programmed so. Some people have the belief, the definition, that if the hobby becomes their primary activity, work, then they won't be provisioned by money, or it won't be anymore a satisfactory work. But this is just a belief effect that is really manifesting such conditions. So pay attention to your beliefs and definitions that I was talking in the lecture about our alignment. This is not a fact. This is just a belief that is really manifesting such conditions. Further, so in the natural economy, people perform what will be exciting for them. Therefore, what are most people carrying out today in their free time? In fact, natural economy doesn't require that everyone is employed, since it is itself ensuring that everyone is provisioned. This is the basis, that everyone is provisioned without working. But of course, every human being has its own mission, and so we are living in this physical world, and everyone can find an exciting work sooner or later. Because we're talking a completely different society that is discovering the potentials of people. Thus, the natural economy is taking care for everyone so that everyone can perform a desired primary activity. The natural economy will provide all the basic and additional human needs, which means that society will reflect harmony. And harmony will be also reflecting the lesser need for the redundant laws and regulations, as the civilization will be based on prevention of the causes for various troubles rather than on the elimination of the consequences, like today. And when everyone will be provisioned, then will also drastically drop the crime and violence. Today we have much discurative and just because of money, so that money is circulating. These penalties and so on. If we take into account the solving of issues according to the natural economy, then let's look, for example, onto the new era's traffic, the traffic of the future. Well, here we would soon notice a lot less of personal transportation as it will prevail the public transportation. But despite that, the traffic regulations would change a lot, for example, in the amount of road signs. In fact, a large part of the signs is already overburdening the drivers and riders, since the saturation of road signs is today more than obvious. We have too much these road signs. Therefore, and many road signs are just there so that how can I say this? So that you take a responsibility for your own actions, not the country itself. For example, if a road is very slippery, they put a sign rather than repair the road, so that you take responsibility for your own actions, not not the country, so that you won't blame in the future. That you won't blame them in the future. Further, therefore, for example, the maximum vehicle speed could be already electronically limited in the vehicle, because we don't need higher speeds than the ones allowed on the freeways, on the motorways, therefore in the fastest roads. And so the speeds can also be electronically limited for other roads, if you take for other roads, of course. If you take into account other road signs, such as signs for various dangers on the roads, then they are almost all unnecessary. So the road signs like the slippery road, the uneven road surface, falling rocks, dangerous curve, wildlife of the road, etc., are all reversible. All these dangers are in fact completely reversible with proper construction and maintenance of roads. In fact, if the asphalt is slippery even in dry conditions, then it requires a proper corrugation. Further, if a road is full of bumps or holes, then it possibly needs just a repair, a quick repair. If there is a danger of dropping rocks on the road, then it is necessary to build a roadside concrete shield, or even a tunnel, or at least to protect the slope with a specific net. Further, if there is a sharp and dangerous curve, then the road needs a correct strong cross inclination. Then, if a road is often crossed with wild animals, then it is necessary to lay a roadside net and build passages for wildlife over the road. So regardless of the type of challenges, whether it goes for legal violations or traffic regulations, the majority can be prevented in the beginning. This is the simple approach of the natural economy, because in the natural economy there is no money problem. The only problem, let's say better challenge, is the workforce, technology, and natural raw materials. So to repair our road surface, we need the asphalt, raw materials, we need workforce, and no money. If you have these two, and so the workers that are loving their job, so the issue is solved. Further, the transition to the natural economy is already taking place on many levels of our existence. Let me give you some examples. First of all, with the virtual revolution, thus with the invention of personal computers and the internet. Just imagine how much pirated illegal software, music, movies, video games, and electronic books are being downloaded on computers right now. Just imagine how much pirated illegal software, music, movies, video games, and electronic books are being downloaded on computers right now. In fact, there is no involvement of money. Similarly, it is with the growing number of freeware programs that you can download onto your computer for free. free of charge. If you are still thinking within the framework of the monetary economy, then you cannot see that this is the beginning of the natural economy where everything will be free of charge. Of course, leaving aside the negative consequences on the business, but this is not any issue for the natural economy. The key issue for the natural economy is whether has the quality of software, music, movies, video games, and electronic books came to a standstill. Leaving your test aside, because of piracy, the quality has certainly not come to a standstill. In fact, the unconscious standstill most often comes with when we are performing a certain thing in the same way for a longer period of time, when our creativity disappears, when it is not following the new consciousness, this collective consciousness. This is the standstill of creativity. Anyway, governments may stubbornly resist the pirated content, but in such a way they are only resisting the progress of civilization, the natural economy. Further, the natural economy is in the virtual revolution also reflected through the online audio-video communication. The online audio-video communication makes possible to communicate around the world, and this completely tariff-free. Well, if you exclude our payable internet access. So this is Skype, for example. Furthermore, I guess you are familiar with the most popular free online encyclopedia, aren't you? This Wikipedia. This is a huge database of information that cannot be squeezed into a single book, and it is available for free to everyone who has an internet access. This is natural economy. Furthermore, we also have the most known free online translator of languages, which is working pretty fine, this Google Translator and possibly others. And of course, the natural economy is also shown in the usual borrowing of books, but somewhere they went even a step further, so that they've established a digital library where you have available for free many kinds of literature in electronic format, so free ebooks, natural economy. Furthermore, the transition to the natural economy is also reflected in the virtual coins or cryptocurrency, which is not the property of any central bank or a country. This cryptocurrency is only a temporary thing, because we are going into non-monetary system. This is a transition cryptocurrency. The virtual coins can be bought and then used for purchasing through certain online stores. Next, we also have the time banking. What is time banking? Time banking is based on the exchange of services, but not with conventional money as intermediary, but with the time money. That can be in the virtual or physical form. And what is the basic difference in comparison with conventional money? Well, the users of time banking, mostly the communities, can offer and buy services evaluated by the hours that are necessary to perform a certain product or service. Therefore, the unit of time money is 1 hour, but of course there are also smaller units like minutes. In this way, we can better evaluate our services, but even more the effort that someone has invested into his work. So, when you buy something, there are written hours and minutes to pay, and so you quickly come to a conclusion how much energy was implemented into a certain work. So there is there is more visible the human effort, the human energy. Because today the higher number, be it euros or dollars, doesn't mean that was invested much more energy in there necessarily. Further, yes, the digital revolution is the beginning of natural economy. All the technology, automation, and robotics, especially the virtual world of computers with the internet, are our friends. In addition to the virtual revolution, which represents especially the technological transition to the natural economy, there is also undergoing the spiritual transition that is represented by the large and small collectives or communities which are aware of peaceful cooperation and unity. In fact, there also exist some transition towns or networks that avoid the use of fossil fuels and strive for a balance between the ecological and economical. In some countries, they also have their own independent currencies. Search for this on the web. There exist such communities, collectives. Further, the next spot of interest are the organic farms, which promote ecological food production without money as intermediary. On these farms, the volunteers are receiving in return a free accommodation, food, and other benefits. And then you also have the well-known Israeli kibbutz, for example, or the Israeli communities, where people are sharing almost everything and live on the non-monetary basis. So there is a direct exchange of services and goods, but especially the cooperation in unity. People are working together with what they like the best. Okay. For example, I was volunteering in India for 6 months in a city called in a commune collective, big collective called Oroville. Yes, they strive. One of the plans is to go into a non-monetary this natural economy, and partially they succeed. They are very ecological. Most of them are spiritually awakened, some even enlightened. More of that I wrote in my book. Okay, let's go further. But the natural economy is not based only on natural resources, on friendly technology, ecology, prevention, and on the devoted self, but also on simplicity and practicality. The fact is that the new wider consciousness tends to simplify everything with as little as possible of complication, mediation, bureaucracy, and so forth. The simplicity and practicality is also reflected in all kinds of trade events, such as the exchanging of vegetables and fruits on the market, without money and as intermediary. This is happening all around the world, but mostly on a smaller scale. People are simply bringing the excess of harvest that can be exchanged by the harvest of other people. Such approach reflects the simplicity and practicality, but also the savings in reducing the amount of harvest that would end in the compost bin. And also, the exchange of clothes is very frequent, or books and so on. Further, as for next, in Slovenia, we also have the free exchange of books and some kinds of mini wooden houses by the streets, very small houses like bird houses, where people live there use books so that passersby can after take them. So there are various these small wooden houses by the streets in some parts of Slovenia. You put them your used books or new unread books, and so others can take them. A very practical thing. And that the future be very simple and practical will also testify the pro bono clinics arising in Slovenia and elsewhere. Such clinics are accepting patients who have no health insurance and cannot be treated elsewhere for free. But not only this, because the pro bono clinics are also providing free medicines, further free medicines and so on. Yes, this is ours in Slovenia and my country and elsewhere. Further, to the natural approach, to this new approach of the natural economy, I should also add the free city bus transport with free internet access to, which was introduced in my neighboring town. In my neighboring town, so I have free city bus transport with free Wi-Fi. As you can see, the world is just moving for the better, and the simplicity of the natural economy can be already seen. Don't be surprised through the undeclared work. Yes, almost no, because there is almost no mediation, bureaucracy, this papers and so forth. In fact, it goes for a work that is very focused on the simplicity of direct giving and receiving. So I see the undeclared work as a transition to the natural economy. And for the last, a few words on the politics of future, how the natural economy is going to influence this politics. Well, for a start, let me straight ask you some political questions. Have you even voted to increase the taxes? Have you voted to increase the various penalties? Traffic penalties, for example, tickets and so on. Then, have you voted for the purchasing of new weapons for the army? Then, have you voted to import food from other countries? Then, have you voted for the construction of new malls or shopping centers? Well, in all likelihood, you haven't. I'm saying because the disregarding of the population's opinion is completely dehumanizing the society. These are important things, and people uh, must have their decisions here. Further, when we have the spiritually unawakened people in positions in the government, then even the democratic voting cannot work miracles. But why? Because some individuals in the leadership positions cannot really change the state of a country, neither for the better nor for the worse, if we as a collective of citizens do not decide to do so, since we are the ones who are supporting the system and placing the boundaries of what is meant by a decent living. So even if you're day by day blaming the government, practically you are doing nothing. In the Middle Ages, uh, when there were this in the castles, this how do I say this? I don't know. Well, where the leadership, the straight put the straight took out this leadership from the castle and even burned them on a pile. So when there were disagreements, they've done something, but not today. Not so. It's not so. Um, Too little action. Good action. I mean, there's a lot of talking. For example, I've done some protest before the government in Slovenia with my friends, but there was very little. I mean, very little people involved. So for me, this means that people are satisfied with the with the current system, even if they are day by day talking and talking. That is a complete crisis catastrophe. Further, into the case to come, the politics is going to change considerably. In one of the potential futures, the person will consist of leadership with visions in economy, science, engineering, and education, who will have also obvious knowledge of personal growth and spiritual development. So much of the people are going to be spiritual awakened and even enlightened. The person is going to become more colorful and vibrant, new ideas with no lack. The governments will not work in the form of pyramid or a hierarchy, but in the form of a block where everything will flow mostly in parallel without placing too much emphasis on the leadership. The solving of issues will be practically oriented without excessive philosophizing. Today there is too much emphasis on people and too little on practical ideas. Further, the new leadership will cultivate an entirely different attitude toward the population. The communication between the leadership and the population will be enlarged and bidirectional. The ideas will be exchanging on a daily basis between the government and people. Today, there is not such a thing. Mostly the government deciding, and even these referendums are so-so. The biggest difference will be the feedback, thus the population's response to the leadership's ideas. While the biggest task will stand onto the population itself, because the population will have to educate in many ways that is today in the compulsory education hardly learning, in this obligatory education, elementary school, primary school. So when will the majority population become spiritually awakened and when the communication will be bidirectional and constructive, only then we can expect the new era. Then people will pass good ideas that will be evaluated and respected by the leadership. So the purpose of the leadership is not going to be only governance, but mainly the solving of population issues through daily communication. The problem is today that there is very little communication between the inhabitants and government. I mean, a direct communication, not just through referendums and voting. Still further, in the future, we won't vote for parties, but for the best ideas that will improve our life. Or at least the emphasis is on the ideas. Such ideas will be gathered from the leadership and citizens from both sides. However, the voting will be often unnecessary because if it will be scientifically proven that an idea is the best of all, for example through computer simulations, then the subjective opinions automatically lose importance. You do simulations, for example, where is best to place a certain establishment, a certain thermal power plant, a certain railroad, so that it is the most economical what regards the distance, the transport of products and services, of energy, and so on. Further, the leadership personnel is going to be divided according to social areas such as economy, science, education, culture, and not according to partisanship. Uh, so the election and voting will increasingly lose its importance. This means that it will no longer go as much for voting candidates and parties, as in this way there is always somebody who wins while many more lost. While many more lose. Yes, this is lose. Yes, this is the easiest and quickest solution, but not the best, as voting represents also duality and the division into the better and the worse ones, and so that there is less of quarreling. This is not good. The best way are these compromises, so that you take a little of energy from everyone and to make out of it a new idea, so that every one of us is important. This is uniting people. So the winning will be achieved only when we start cooperating both the better and the worse ones, and irrespective of the type and level of our education. And then the compromises or consensus will come into the light, thus the consent of or agreement of the leadership. And so new solutions will be created after the given these contradictions or discrepancies. In any case, this will require a little more time, of course, but it's not going to be a trouble for the spiritual awakened and enlightened leadership. And so there will be no losers, as cooperation and compromises are uniting the citizens, while partisanship and voting is separating them. Yes, in the future you can forget about cheering and personification with a certain party or a politician, because the ideas will become the main driving force of progress. People will have a word to say. It's very difficult to personify with a certain idea, but today people are cheering and personify with a certain politician, and they hate others. So search for good ideas, practical ideas to be implemented. And the last paragraph. Today, it's entirely understandable to me why I have always loved the many surveys or polls rather than the elections of presidents and parties. I remember my teenage and adolescent years how I loved answering to all kinds of surveys, whether by mail, phone, or online. I believe that my opinion as an idea is important, and that someone in the top will also take it into account when when reorganizing the country. However, as I have discovered, it mostly remained at statistics. Yet everything will change for the better. Yes, I very like the answer this poll service, and this is a very good thing. So that you survey the public, the citizens, what the population really needs, and then you implement the changes. And so I very rarely vote for presidents or parties and so on. I prefer practical things, ideas, not people. Okay, this is all for today. The next time is the second part about the natural economy, and it's how we can organize this uh, country world. What can we do as individuals uh, to quicken this to quicken the transition to the natural economy? And so I'm going to mention two types of organization: the individual organization, the bottom-up organization, what can we do as individuals, and then the top-down organization from the governments down. Okay, bye bye.